what we're asking these guys to do, to play as well as anybody that plays this game, we're not setting expectations, try to win a few games and make some progress. That's not what we're doing here. We're trying to take this as far as you can possibly take it, and it's the only perspective that they have heard from me, and that's the only one I can even imagine. I can't even think any way else.
What's good, Raider Nation? Welcome back to Vegas Nation First and 10, your weekly go-to for Raider news and analysis. I'm Vinny Bonsignore. I cover the Raiders for the Las Vegas Review-Journal and Vegas Nation. To my left is my great colleague, Adam Hill. He also covers the Raiders and everything else here in Las Vegas for the Las Vegas Review-Journal and Vegas Nation. Before we get into what we want to talk about today, I want to remind everybody that all Vegas Nation podcasts, including First and 10, are brought to you by the Las Vegas Review-Journal and Stations Casinos, STN Sports, and we appreciate all of their support. Adam Hill, coming into the show, we heard the voice of Pete Carroll, the Raiders head coach, and he was talking about not really being interested in incremental improvement or minimal improvement. He wants to push this as far as he can. It's how he's wired. He wants to win as many games as possible, see where that ends up getting the Raiders, and I guess we're all going to find out together how far that gets pushed and how far and how many wins that actually means. But as we sit here today, just a few weeks now away from training camp, it feels like Pete Carroll and the Raiders are approaching this as a win now season. Not talking about Super Bowl or anything like that, but go out there and compete and win as many games as you possibly can. When you look at this roster as we sit here now in June, I don't expect any significant changes between now and training camp or even the regular season. Is this a win now roster in your estimation?
It's interesting that we played that because I felt he was talking to me. Like that, he directly.
It's always about Adam.
It is. He directly addressed everything that I've been saying over and over and over again, and I did, hear some feedback from people that thought it was interesting that I was saying that, but he was saying the exact same things opposite of what I was saying. Like I said, they are about incremental, improvement. I think everything they've done is to show incremental improvement. Mm-hmm. Like that's what they've kind of done here. I feel like that's what they are doing. And so when he came out and said, we're not about just getting a little bit better, we're about trying to push it as far as we can, that's not to me how they've treated this offseason. They've treated this offseason to make sure they're not bad. And I don't love that approach. I think it's more about building to be a consistent winner in the future. But this is the way that they're doing it. Veteran players, guys that aren't going to be around in 3 or 4 years when you should be really pushing that Super Bowl window. Like, it's interesting the way that they're building because they are building like they're trying to be better.
Without question.
But they're not building like they're trying to compete. So it's kind of interesting to me.
I would disagree with
when
that.
I say compete, I mean for a Super Bowl.
Oh, well,
like they're not trying
it's hard to make that leap from a 4-win team to a Super Bowl.
Well, but I think there's different approaches, right? There's the approach of, hey, let's try to be 9-8, and then let's try to be 11 and I'm trying to remember, it's 17 games now. So then let's try to be 11-6 because usually you say 11-5. Then try to be 11-6 and then compete for a Super Bowl that third year. And then there's the, hey, let's be bad, and then try to compete. Like maybe like when you get a young quarterback like say Jay Daniels last year with the.
Let's try to be bad. Like who? Who are you? Who are you? Just a few top people in the organization. I mean, you can't send that message to the players. And with all due respect to Adam.
Sure.
And his ego, I'm just kidding.
Sure.
The message wasn't to Adam Hill. It was to his players. He wants his players to attack everybody in the building, actually, but specifically the players. Attack every single day, every weight room session, every day in the classroom. When you go home and you leave the facility and it's time for some film work, rather than getting on, the PlayStation or whatever, how about doing your due diligence on the film, what you're eating, how you're taking care of your body. It's all about trying to win and creating that mindset. Where that takes the Raiders,
right.
It takes them. But I think the message was to the players there's no going into the season hoping, we could win a couple of extra games. No, until the playoffs are out of the question, the playoffs are in question, and you have to attack every single day
and
as if that's what you're competing
right, and that's
for.
what the message should be, of course. That's what everybody should believe. Everybody should believe on the worst team. On the worst team in the league, everybody should believe that they're going to win the Super Bowl.
And until further notice,
sure.
The playoffs are possible.
Right, but the way that they're...
Just as they were possible for the Washington Commanders last year and the Houston Texans the year before that when nobody saw either of those situations.
But the way that they're approaching building the team is not that message, right? So, like, what I'm saying is...
What would you have done?
So what I'm saying... let's look at linebacker, right? I was going to say that right now.
Linebacker.
You signed a Landon Roberts because you want to be good. you're not bringing him in right now because you're like, hey, that's going to help us take it to the next level. You'd rather have a guy that's 24, 25 that's going to be really good in 3 years. That's the signing you make. Well, what I'm saying is that's the kind of guys you're trying to find. Like you're trying to sign guys that are right now. You're trying to sign guys that are going to make you good. That's what they're doing. That's the way that they're approaching this. They're trying to stabilize things. They're trying to be competitive, and it's clear that that's what they've done with almost every decision that they've made. In a lot of ways, they're trying to make sure that they're a good team this year, and that's fine. That's how they've approached it. They're not building it like, hey, we want to be a Super Bowl winner in 3 or 4 years. I mean, that is the ultimate goal, of course. It's two different ways to get there. I think the other approach is the better approach because the last couple of years they've been bad at trying to be good. Like that's how it's worked out. They've tried to be good, they're bad. Like you have to commit to being bad for a while in order to get good, and they haven't really fully bought into being bad. Like they've never quote unquote tanked. They just haven't done it.
I don't think that. I don't necessarily think last year when trading up was no longer available to them.
Yeah.
They weren't trying to be great at quarterback. They weren't even trying to really be good at quarterback last year. They understood that's a huge issue. Let's go ahead and draft the guys like Brock Bowers, redo the offensive line, and invest premium picks in the offensive line. That felt like that was the plan. This was more for the long range, retooling the roster. I think you can. I believe you could do both. I think you could build for the now and compete as at the highest level that you possibly can, while investing in the future, which is what those 11 draft picks are for. Those 11 draft picks are for the now, but also for a payoff down the line, an even bigger payoff down the line.
Sure, but the problem is what you're going to have to do is at some point you have to find the franchise quarterback, right? That's what has to happen,
without doubt.
And again, Geno Smith is let's try to be kind of good. Let's make sure we stabilize. We're kind of good, right? That's not getting you to the next level. It's just not like that. I think clearly
the next level
you can't make that argument that
the next level for the Raiders is to be kind of good. Even though I would take out that adjective,
okay?
Because I think they think
here's the debate.
They believe they could be better than kind of good. I really believe that.
I mean,
competing for a playoff spot,
right? That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to do what they can to be in a position to maybe get like that 7 seed. Like that's what they're trying to work on right now.
Good to you?
And that's
that's from bad to I would say that's good. If you're a playoff team, you're a good team. It's not kind of
because
good.
what I would make the argument, but I guess the argument is. I'm saying there can be a playoff team if the playoff cut line is like 9-8 or maybe 10-7, and you sneak into that spot. Which again, I've always said that's a disaster because then how do you get your quarterback then? Right? I mean, the ultimate goal in all of this. I mean, got incredibly lucky. And by the way, did they?
What's that?
Did they?
He's been to a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game.
Right. Because a rookie quarterback and rookie deal can help you do that because the way you can build a team.
I mean,
he's okay.
Yeah, okay. When you say a rookie quarterback, you know how many rookie quarterbacks have been hot garbage? But
they put everything. They put everything else in place around him, and made it a perfect situation to get a rookie quarterback. And that's maybe what the Raiders' approach could be here.
And they went into
but you got to get incredibly lucky. They also, the 49ers also traded up and did what they had to do to try to get the quarterback and missed, and then got very fortunate. And what we've talked about, what we've talked about is you've got to take those shots at quarterback. Hopefully, find them. And the Raiders did that again this year, trying to find a young quarterback. I don't know that that's the answer, but they're going to try. Like, to me, it's everything about your franchise needs to be finding that guy. And if they go 9-8, I think 9-8 and miss the playoffs, right?
Okay.
To me, is the worst case scenario for a season. It just is. That's not just for the Raiders. That's for every team. To me, what you don't want to be is like the team that barely misses the playoffs, and it feels like that could very well be this season. Right. I mean, it very well could. I think the Raiders, the way that they're building things, would look at that as success. I do. I absolutely believe that they would look at it as success.
Yeah.
And they probably should, because that'd be a very impressive jump up of 5 games. Like, they should. And I'm not suggesting that you should say, oh, that's a disaster.
Right.
But from the outside,
as you're
analyzing it,
it's not.
To me, it's a disaster because it's not getting you to your ultimate goal. Because your ultimate, you would rather be. You would rather be 2-15 than 9-8.
They've been there. They've been a 4-win team. They've been perpetually bad for a little while.
The 4 wins didn't get them what they needed. They need a franchise quarterback. That's what they need. And again, Geno Smith is an improvement, and he's good, and I think he's going to ensure that they win games. And I think that's what their goal. To me, that's what their goal is. Their goal is to try to get a little bit better.
Yeah,
and that should be. That's fine. That's how they're building the team. I just don't think that's the right approach to try to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean,
like to me, would you rather be a team that is good,
how do you
makes the playoffs for a few years, getting a franchise quarterback?
How? What? No, how
being terrible.
How would you go about being terrible? How are you selling that to anybody? How are you doing that? How are you going about being terrible? I want to know that Adam Hill's plan, be terrible.
So I would suggest that they've already kind of missed those chances a little bit, because I've said this over and over again the last couple of years. 2 years ago, you could have absolutely tried to lose the last couple of games, and you didn't.
How?
And you won. How? By not.
How?
There's ways to,
how are you
doing
to lose
a
game?
game.
How are you doing that without getting
We're trying to get our young guys.
How are you doing that without that getting leaked out? You don't.
It happens all the time. Hey, we're playing our young guys. Hey, we really want to focus on our young guys for the future. We're going to take a bunch of starters off the field. We're going to focus on the young guys going forward. We're not going to basically tell the players, hey, if you want to win, if you want your coach to stay around, you got to win these last couple games and fire them up.
Crosby off the field.
Sure.
They replaced the veteran quarterback with the young kid, Aiden O'Connell. It was a young running back.
Right, but you also...
What happened?
You also kind of told the team that they have to win the game to keep their coach if they want him. Right? I mean, that did happen. No, 2 years ago.
I'm talking about last year.
Okay,
I'm
fine.
I'm talking about last year. They took Max off the field. They were in... Hey, this is the season.
But this argument starts 2 years ago is what I'm talking about. When at the end of the season, that's when all these quarterbacks were going to be available, and they had this chance to tell Antonio Pierce, it's your job, and tell the players, hey, it's coach's job, and like we're going to go with a bunch of young guys, and you don't have to go get fired up to win these games because it's not going to matter. We're good here. Don't tell them, hey, get fired up and go save this job for this coach. And again, that's what they did.
If losing enough games, short of Jaden Daniels. All right. Are Jake May's going to get the Patriots to the Super Bowl?
Eventually, he very well could. Yeah, I think he's got a lot of talent. He's got a lot of ability. I don't know about Michael Penix. I'm not sure. I'm definitely not sold on Bo Nix. J.J. McCarthy, maybe. We don't really know where he's going to be.
Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams, I think certainly could.
I love Caleb Williams.
Yeah, sure.
But if you weren't in that,
but you could have been.
I mean, it would have meant purposely losing. I don't know how you go about doing.
You can't purposely
lose,
lose,
that's
but you
can. The
can.
only way that ensures that you're going to lose games.
It's not. It's putting guys on the field. They went and tried to win those games. We saw how they approached those games. Why
wouldn't you? If you're a player, you're going to. How are you going to every player?
But if the best players aren't on the field, then that's a better chance of you to not win, right? That'd be. I think everybody can agree on that, right?
So you're gonna tell. Every single contract has a clause, has playing time,
not every,
games,
not every single.
much.
Not every.
There's a lot of them do.
A few.
A lot of them do. How are you going to tell a player?
Oh, then you can pay them off too.
So
you can say, hey, look, you're close to this bonus. We're paying that off.
I think that's obviously. You can lose your way to higher picks. I get
of course,
that, but you can't purposely do it. There's no way to do it.
You couldn't have ensured.
You can't halfway do it either, because halfway doing it,
you couldn't have had 100. You couldn't have had 100%. You could definitely have given yourself a better chance to lose.
Okay, we've had this conversation before, without question. I'm asking you, do you feel like this is a win now roster to potentially challenge for a playoff spot, which I think would be.
Yes, I absolutely think they've done everything they can to not be a terrible team, to make sure that they are I think they're a 9-8 team. That's what can that be in the playoffs? Sure, if a lot of different things go wrong and they sneak their way in, for sure.
What has to happen, would you say, for them to get that maximum 9, maybe 10 wins?
Well, obviously the offense has to much better be able to run the ball, which with Ashton Genty and I think a different scheme, I think that helps. Obviously, Geno Smith has to cut back on the turnovers from last year,
right,
and smoothly transition into this offense. That needs to happen, and they need some young players on the defense, especially in the secondary, to step up and play to the best of their ability, and then I think they can get there. I think. Excuse me. I think this is the first year that I've really been covering this team that I would say this is an over team, and what I mean by that is the season win total. Where I was just having this conversation the other day with some people in the betting world of this is a really low number for this team at 7. People think it's going to be one of the worst teams in the league. I don't believe that.
Right.
So I think they're significantly better than that. I think they're 8-win kind of floor, maybe 7 floor, probably 8-9. And I think that's where they are. Mm-hmm. And I think that's everything that they've done is to make sure that they are in that range. And again, I don't love that approach, but that's what they've done. Like I wouldn't have signed veteran players that are in their early 30s. Like it just wouldn't have happened. Like none of those guys. Everybody's 23, 24, 25 that I'm signing.
I mean, to me, these are 1-year deal guys.
Sure.
They're going to be gone next year, and maybe guys.
But what I'm saying, right, of course. But if
you're trying to go to the playoffs this year, though, Adam, you're trying
I'm not.
I know you're not.
Right, but I'm saying
that's what they're doing.
Right, they are.
Yeah.
And again, but they are not trying to. They're not trying to. Instead of trying to build a 2 or 3 or 4 year project where they get to the Super Bowl and they can potentially win a Super Bowl, like they're trying to say, let's do everything we can to try to win this year. And win, I mean 9 or 10 games, maybe sneak into the playoffs again. That would be a very successful season for them. Mm-hmm. Instead of, I would have no older guys playing this year. I'd have all young guys that are trying to play, trying to improve, and trying to get to that next level.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 years from now, when say the window is open for the Raiders to win a Super Bowl, is Landon Roberts on that team?
No, but the inside linebacker is the easiest position on the football field to replace. And likely you could draft a guy, an undrafted free agent. Robert Spillane was an undrafted.
Sure, and I also I want to make sure. Like I think Landon Roberts is good. That's the case I'm making. I think he's good, a very good player.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense to me for building a winner down the road. Like that's where it is.
Because they want to win right now.
Clearly,
Pete Carroll has,
and this is where this started. Is that Pete Carroll said we want to push it as far as we can, but it feels like that's not what they're doing. They're trying to be good, not great. That's where I'm at.
But okay, so what would you have done to be great this year? What could you
not be great this year? You can't.
You're talking about great down. Yeah.
Yes. My entire philosophy is to build a consistent team that can be a Super Bowl contender. No,
by always losing.
I want a consistent Super Bowl contender. I don't want a team that maybe one miracle season you make a run to a Super Bowl. Like that's not what I want. I want a team. I want to be, if I'm the Raiders, I want to be the Chiefs. Right? That's what I want.
You drafted
and to me, this isn't how you get there.
Here, let me ask you
this.
You
need to find that guy.
Of course you do.
And you can't do that by being in the middle of the pack every year.
Okay, I'm sorry. Where were the Kansas City Chiefs when they drafted Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, they had a really good quarterback that wasn't great.
Okay, but where were they in the standings?
Patrick Mahomes fell for a variety of reasons. They got very lucky.
10th pick overall.
Sure, but they would have. They traded up.
Okay, so
which is kind of what the Raiders. But it's easier to get there if you don't have to do that.
However, there are teams that the 49ers the Chiefs being a clear example of a team that traded up. Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens, traded back up into the first round. And here's what my counter argument to everything that you're saying is, if the Raiders get to the 9-10 win plateau, whether or not they make the playoffs, okay, just set that aside, all right? And so they're your middle of the pack, all right? And Brock Bowers is doing his thing, and Ashton Genty is doing his thing, and maybe some of the young secondary players and young wide receivers are doing their thing, and all of a sudden there's the young guys on the defensive line, the Jonah Lalus and the guys that they drafted are showing some promise. All right. To me, you could go into next year's draft, which is quarterback heavy, right? As we sit here today, we'll see how it all plays out. But that would be the time if you've made a nice jump forward. That would be the time for me to say, let's go ahead and trade up now to go get a quarterback. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to be able to trade all the way up to number one. But if you can follow a Kansas City Chiefs, because I do think this is going to be a quarterback draft that was more reminiscent of last year's draft. I think there'll be about 5 guys that go in that top 15 pick, within the top 15, top 13 picks. If you could trade up, that would be the perfect time to do it, because you feel pretty good about where the roster is with some young players, that now might be the time to go and invest some of those draft picks, those draft assets, to go get your quarterback of the future.
It's easier to do that if you don't have to trade up.
I get that.
Because what happened last year? Again, there's examples both ways, but I just find it easier the other way. What happened last year? They were too far away to try to get Jaden Daniels. They knew Jaden Daniels was the guy.
But
they're too far away.
Unless they wouldn't. It wouldn't have mattered if they were.
If they were at 3 or 4, they could have traded up. I think.
There's no way.
I think the Commanders would have done it.
Hell no.
I think they would have.
No. The
There's always
Washington
a price.
Commanders were so there's not always a price. There is not always a price, and that was a case of you had three teams: the Patriots, the Commanders, and the Bears that needed quarterbacks just as badly as the Raiders did, and everybody else. And there was
So you're saying they needed to finish second to last in the league?
That would have
been nice.
Yeah, it
would have been nice.
But there's nothing you can do about it, and there's
something you can do about it, but that's fine. You finish there. But again, there's multiple ways to do it. I think you can get lucky finding a quarterback. Like the Ravens identified Lamar Jackson, and they were able to get him at the end of the first round. Chiefs identified Mahomes, although they had to go to 10.
Green Bay Packers drafted Jordan Love where? The Philadelphia Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts where?
Right, second round. Okay.
There's definitely different ways to do it without losing all your damn games.
But it makes it easier.
It does make it easier, but it's not impossible, is what I'm saying. And there's strong history to suggest that it doesn't have to be like that. And you could also, trade up. Or if the Rams traded up from, I think, 15-1 to get Jared Goff. He got him to a Super Bowl, and then they flipped Jared Goff and other assets to go get Matthew Stafford, the guy that won them the Super Bowl.
As a reminder, this argument is about 2 years ago, by the way. It's not necessarily about, because this year what I think they could have done is just not sign veterans, gone very young, because they have so many other young players. Just sign younger players. Like, I'd rather have a 3 or 4 23, 24-year-old linebackers than a really, really good veteran in a Landon Roberts. Landon Roberts gives you a much better chance to win, and that's fine.
I'd
rather develop guys and see which of those guys pan out, and that's a guy that I have for the future.
I think they're doing that at other positions. They're not doing that linebacker.
Sure.
Now, I think your argument, I would have been more on your argument of what they are or aren't doing, is if they would have re-signed Robert Spillane to the contract that he got, if they would have re-signed Trayvon Merrick to the contract that he got, if they were to re-sign Nate Hobbs to the contract that he got, then that not only ties you into good, maybe not great players at those positions, and unlike where they are with their linebackers right now, and I think Jeremy Chin was a 2-year guy, but there's much more flexibility with the veteran guys that can stabilize it right now, and then get you to, like you said, there's no doubt in my mind, obviously, that Pete Carroll would love to have some young linebackers right now to groom. But there's wanting to do that, and there's availability of those guys. I think Christian Ellis was a guy that they were trying to do that with, but obviously that didn't work out. But you just can't do that all in one off season, and you have to at some point say to yourself, regardless of what the long-range plan is, you still need to compete this year, especially here with the Raiders. You're losing your home base at the stadium. You have to create some excitement for these fans. You're trying to establish yourself in this market. I think
fans would be pretty excited about a top quarterback.
I think they would be excited about going to Allegiant Stadium in December with games that count.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. It's just a different way to try to get to an ultimate goal. What is the ultimate goal? Is it, hey, let's see if we can make a Super Bowl, or let's see if we can have a 10-year run as a team that has a chance to make a Super Bowl every year, which is what I would be pushing for.
The only way you do that is by having that quarterback that you're talking about.
You got to find him.
It's hard to do that. Yeah, and you have to be. There's ways to do it, and creative ways to do it, and I think that. We'll see. Tom Brady and John Spytek and Pete Carroll. Remember, Pete Carroll could argue, like, where did I get Russell Wilson? Where did I get my Super Bowl quarterback?
Yeah.
It wasn't the first round. I didn't have to lose a whole bunch of games. In fact, I think they were coming off maybe a playoff appearance, or they were somewhere in that mix. They had just signed Matt Flynn, for crying out loud, and they had made the playoffs his first year. It was a 7-9.
I thought there was a 3-13 in there somewhere.
Not the year.
No, maybe not that year though.
No. He came in 7-9 was his first year, and they actually made the playoffs.
Yeah,
and they beat the Saints.
7-9 is a losing record with a home game in the first round.
Right, a division winner. So, all right, real quick, we're going to get to our weekly feature with our own Heidi Fang and Chuck Esposito. He's the race and sportsbook director of Station Casinos STN Sports, and they want to talk about some future bets and some things that are coming up in the NFL, because it's coming right around the corner.
Joining us now here on the First and 10 podcast for Vegas Nation, we have the race and sportsbook director from Station Casinos, Chuck Esposito, in for his weekly segment, and I'm Heidi Fang here joining you as well. Chuck, right now it's kind of quiet in the NFL world, but we do have some new NBA champions just crowned, the Oklahoma City Thunder. I know that futures start coming out for these things, but more importantly right now, the NBA draft is just ahead of us, and Cooper Flagg, probably the big name on the totem pole, but where after Cooper Flag, do some of the odds start to fall into the favor of other players outside of that top pick, which I know is probably heavily favored everywhere for Cooper Flag?
You're right, Heidi. First, it is. It's hot outside, but a lot of cool stuff going on in the sportsbook industry now, even though it's a little bit of a downtime. NBA and NHL finals have concluded now. Kind of waiting for football to really start to ramp up a bit. And, of course, baseball almost to the midway point for the All-Star break. But I think you look at the pro basketball draft, and Cooper Flag is going to go number one to the Dallas Mavericks. After that, you've got Harper and Ace Bailey on everybody's kind of list. There's already been some trades that have happened. I think some of the big things, though, for basketball is that you've got both Halliburton and Jason Tatum, who were injured late in seasons, who could miss the majority of all of next season. So I think it really kind of throws a wrench into the Eastern Conference. So we'll see what happens as far as trades go. If Giannis gets dealt and where he goes would definitely alter the odds. And if there are some big trades that happen during the draft tonight, of course, would also alter some odds for future book teams, for teams to win it all.
I know Kevin Durant was one that kind of started rocking the ship for the Rockets, right? So we saw them and their odds kind of go straight up. Other names do you think could be that polarizing that could change some of the odds that you maybe have heard surfaced in talks for trades and things like that?
I like the way you said it. The odds rocketed, when Durant was dealt. I really think Giannis is the key. I think depending on where, he goes, it could alter the entire board right now. We know that Houston still needs to probably make another move. What will the Lakers and Warriors do? Those are always teams that everybody's looking at as well. So I think there's definitely going to be some movement. I think when you look at the draft, so much now is based on potential. Kids are like one and done. So you don't have that Iverson, that Jordan, that Worthy, that Ewing that have been there, 3 and 4 years before they come out. So it's a little bit different now. It's heavily the European class, and then kids that are only been at the collegiate level usually for 1 year. So interesting to see how it plays out. I think the trades are still going to happen throughout today and during the draft. But my guess, your guess is as good as mine of where ultimately Giannis goes. And depending on where he goes, it could really change the landscape in that league, especially if he remains in the East with both Tatum and Halliburton out for probably the majority, if not the whole year next year.
All right, as we look ahead to next year, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Raiders. The win totals we already know favor and hover around the 6.5 mark for the team. But on our podcast earlier, Adam and Vinny, our hosts, were discussing the possibility the Raiders make the playoffs, the possibility the Raiders go 9-8. Wondering what you've seen with some of the public sentiment when it comes to some of those numbers, especially with the Raiders and the prop to make the playoffs.
There's a tremendous value there at the plus price from them to make the playoffs. I think the tough part with the Raiders, and first there has been a lot of positive buzz about them and Pete Carroll and that new offense, what they have put in with Geno Smith. I think the big question mark is that division, though. You're playing in a division with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and Bo Nix, as Denver took a big step last year, and you're seated fourth right now in that division. So you're going to need to beat the teams in your own division, which is going to be key. We have seen some money come in on the Raiders win total over 6.5. Our guests are extremely Raider centric, so the future book odds are definitely skewed a bit because our guests back the Raiders heavily. But I just think it's a division that they're in. It's really, really tough for them. They're going to have a phenomenal season. Not that they can't, but it's a tough spot to be in playing in the AFC West.
Okay, and more importantly, I wanted to find out on the STN Sports app, when will the football contest come out, the Survivor that we had last year? When is that going to launch for fans that want to get into that action?
Still working on some stuff, but it usually comes out where we start taking applications on August 1. So football is what everybody's kind of talking about now. I think once you get past the All-Star break in baseball, it's all football centric. Teams that have been at camp, you're not that far away from the Hall of Fame game or week 1 of the preseason. You'll get a better gauge of some of the battles in camp of who's going to win some quarterback jobs. So we're not that far away from football, but a little bit of a quiet time right now as, again, both the NBA and NHL seasons have ended. It's really about baseball right now. And as we touched on too, NBA draft tonight, but NHL draft Friday night. So a lot can change in those two sports based on some trades and where some of these younger players end up.
Excellent stuff there, Chuck. I look forward to finding it all, and you can find it all as well on the STN Sports app and at any of the locations around town for Station Casinos. This is Chuck Esposito and Heidi Fang. He's in for his weekly segment, and he is the race and sportsbook director of Station Casinos. But we will be back with you next week to break down some more as it gets closer to training camp, which I'm sure you football fans can't wait for. So keep it tuned here with VegasNation.com. Now back to Adam and Vinny.
Our thanks again to Heidi Fang, our own Heidi Fang, and Chuck Esposito from Station Casinos STN Sports. All right, so I get what you're saying. I mean, it goes without saying. I mean, look at the Oklahoma City Thunder and where they had to go, the depths that they had to fall to build back up. But I think that there's ways that the Raiders could go about getting their quarterback of the future for Geno Smith, while also establishing a level of success here. And I think it's vitally important that they do, because of the reasons that I was articulating in the last segment. It's been one winning season here in Las Vegas. It's been a boring team the last couple of years, especially offensively. There's been no pizzazz outside of Brock Bowers. They need to create some excitement for their fans. Too often, Allegiant Stadium is turning into a home field for other teams' fans, because the Raiders are just not winning enough games to compel their season ticket holders and their ardent fans to either hold on to their tickets or buy tickets on the secondary market to come out here or stay here, and if you're a Las Vegas nodal. So there's a lot of reasons why they need to win right now, even if it is 9 or 10 wins.
The interesting part about this, I don't disagree with all of that, and I understand why they would do the way they're doing, but I think it's very clear what they've done, and what you're articulating is what they have done. I don't think there's any question. It's just you start off with the comment from Pete Carroll of, we're not looking for incremental change, we're looking to push it as far as we can. Well, you're clearly very much looking for incremental change. That's how you've built this roster, and that's fine. It's totally fine. It's all the things that you just said
how do you
are what they've done.
If you're pushing for a playoff spot, to me, you're a good team. That's not incremental from 4 wins. That's not incremental. That's significant.
Well, it was the second part of that quote, right? Push it as far as... Yeah. That basically is suggesting we're trying to compete for a Super Bowl.
No.
Is what it sounds like.
This is the message. This is the message from Pete Carroll. We'll assess at the end of the season what was a success or not. But the goal right now is to push everything as far as possible. And right now, anything is possible. Everything and anything is possible. That's the way the world works. And until the playoffs are no longer a consideration, you're playing to go to the playoffs. Until the Super Bowl is no longer a consideration, that is the ultimate goal. I think he's trying to wire everybody in that building, including his players. That is how you attack every single day. And if you attack every single day with the highest of goals in mind, with the highest of possibilities in mind, that collectively is builds something, and that's what becomes your mindset. And so push it as far as you can means exactly that. Wherever that is, and at that point, Pete Carroll and John Spytek and the organization is gonna look at it and assess what was a success, what do we got to fix. Just like every teams do, including the Super Bowl champion. So he's not saying it's Super Bowl or bust. He's saying. He's saying we're going to push this thing as far as we possibly can, without the idea of right now limiting ourselves to marginal improvement. We want to go for the gusto. And however far that takes us, it takes us.
Well, I guess in the end, to me, the way they built it, if they were 9-8 or 10-7, it would be a fantastic improvement. It would be everything that they set out to do would have been accomplished to me this year. Mm-hmm. But then you're setting up an expectation of, well, no, that's not what we're looking for. We're not looking for incremental change. Okay, well, now it's disappointing. That is, to me, they should be thrilled if they're 10-7 this year. If they're 10, they should be thrilled.
They're going to be. And I think their fans will be too. And I don't think anybody's reading what he just said into that as, but if we don't make the Super Bowl, we're all going to be disappointed.
We're not looking for incremental change. Well, then we're not looking for incremental improvement. 4
wins to the playoffs is not incremental. It is significant. It's significant, and that doesn't.
To the playoffs would be, but if they're 9-8 and not in the playoffs, that would be incremental.
Oh, okay. I mean, yes, it would. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
In the literal sense.
Yeah.
But in a sports sense,
so I think
that's a huge turnaround.
I think
that's a huge turnaround.
I think they should set it up where that would be a phenomenal achievement, and And it would be.
What do you, so your messaging would be, hey, we're shooting for 9-8, and that's going to be great.
No, I mean, I don't think you need to make the he wasn't like directly asked, are you trying to, like, that was, he just came out and said, we are not looking for incremental improvement.
Because that's the mindset that he's trying to create. Right. Is why limit yourself in your thinking, in your imagination, in your goal setting? Why limit yourself? The limits will occur. The season will play out the way the seasons plays out, and they'll fall short of the Super Bowl. And but whether, you know, it'll be up to them, and I guess us too, to determine, hey, was this a successful season or not? And whatever if they finish 9-8 and out of the playoffs, that doesn't mean the Super Bowl isn't possible the following year or the following year after that, depending on what happens in the draft, what happens next offseason. Like, it feels like you always think that getting to 9-8 this year rules out any possibility of a Super Bowl in the next 3 years.
Well, I think what it does, it might make you too comfortable with Geno Smith. Potentially.
I think the contract speaks for itself on where they are with him.
Right, but it might make you like, oh, okay, well, he got us to here. Maybe, like, it might make you too comfortable there. It might make you not realize that you do need that, you know, next level franchise type quarterback. Like, I don't think that would be the concern.
Yeah,
right?
I don't. Even if they thought that, I think his age eliminates that. Like, they know that they have to. You don't think Tom Brady's sitting up there going, we got to get a franchise quarterback at some point?
You would hope so.
And that's something that could happen as early as.
But if the rest of the FC falls apart and 9-8 get you in the playoffs,
I don't think that Tom Brady.
It then becomes difficult next year to say, well, hey, this guy got us to the playoffs, but we're going to move on to the next guy. I don't think Tom Brady or Pete Carroll is wired that way, and I'll tell you why. Just look at the Kansas City Chiefs. Did they get comfortable with who was it? Smith. With Alex Smith.
Did they get comfortable? They went to the AFC Championship game. The AFC Championship game. They didn't settle for that. They understood they still needed to do better. There's nobody on this planet that understands that more than Tom Brady. He's not going to settle for, hey, Geno was good, helped stabilize this thing, helped us get to the playoffs. Maybe we even won a playoff game. But that might be good enough for right now. But long range with a 35-year-old quarterback and understanding you have to get that position nailed down for the long haul. Yeah,
so you would hope so.
I don't see that they would ever get comfortable.
Okay.
With that. Yeah.
Well, you say that now. I can envision our podcast next year of, hey, he got you to the playoffs. Yeah, got to give him a chance.
A chance to still be the starting quarterback while you're maybe developing the future guy. Kind of like, again, Alex Smith. Patrick Mahomes. I mean, yeah. So I don't think that that's a danger, and probably what guards against that the most is his age. If he was 25 years old and was getting into the playoffs, that might be a little bit that you know. I would definitely think that was a possibility. Yeah. But at his age, I think everybody understands that they're going to have to get their quarterback of the future. All right, so we've got a few more weeks before training camp, a little more than a few more weeks, but right around that. Do you expect any moves between now and then, short of Jack Besh signing his contract, and that'll eventually sort itself out?
I would say no, but we do know the history of Pete Carroll, and again, we go back to, and I keep forgetting to have the number ready every week on the podcast, but I believe somewhere in the 280 number of transactions his first year in Seattle.
Where are we at right now, I wonder? We should
go look that up. Yeah, like 280 transactions every week. There's transactions. There's guys moving back and forth during the season. He likes to tinker year one, so and year two he did in Seattle. So I expect maybe something just to, you know, just to freshen things up a little bit.
Yeah, he's over there going, I got to make a move.
Yeah, I
got to make a move. All right, well, whatever happens, we'll be here to talk about it and break it all down and have healthy debates like Adam and I always do. Love this dude right here, by the way. Just want to remind everybody that you're why we do this. All of our listeners, all our subscribers, all of our readers, however you absorb what we do here at Vegas Nation and Las Vegas Review Journal, whether you're clicking on the links to our articles, whether you're watching the videos, checking out our photo essays, checking out the great work by Adam Hill and Heidi Fang and Ed Graney and everybody else on the staff. We truly appreciate it. Spread the word. Tell everybody about Vegas Nation. If you've got Raider fans, in the family or coworkers or friends, and makes for a great gift. A subscription to Vegas Nation makes for a great gift. Make sure you hit the like buttons, hit the subscribe buttons, do all those things that you're supposed to do on social media. We appreciate it. We appreciate you. Enjoy the weekend, and we will talk to you guys next week.